Mortgage lenders have reported their strongest month in almost 5 years. But is it all good news for buyers?
Well, an estimated £16.6 billion worth of mortgages were agreed last month, which is the highest amount since October 2008. Mortgage lending up by 29% on July last year.
But let's not get carried away. Things are still tough for first-time buyers. Asking prices have climbed 5.5%. And the latest figures show that prices paid by first-time buyers are up by almost 4% on last year.
Yeah, so let's hear from 33-year-old Christy Morrison. She's been trying to find a property for almost 2 years now.
I've been looking for a property a couple of years now, but property prices are very high. The way markets are going, things are going up. Lending, banks don't want to lend anymore, and it's just a struggle. Ideally, I'm looking for a two-bedroom flat. It would be around about 270, 300 in the area I would like to buy. So obviously you're into the 3% stamp duty then, which adds on a huge chunk extra onto your deposit you need to get together. When everything else in life is getting so much more expensive as well, it just makes it that much harder, where your salary might not be rising at the same rate as inflation or property prices. You expect to own property by the time you get to a certain age, and it would be nice to have somewhere that you're like, this is my own place now.
We're going to chat about this now with property expert Henry Pryor, and there are two sides to this coin, aren't there? There's obviously people like Christy trying to get on the ladder, can't afford it, trying to find the right place, but for those people who own a property already, good news.
Great news. If you're one of the haves rather than the have-nots, happy days are here again, it would appear, and the housing boom and allegedly housing bubble in some parts of the country continues to expand. And if you're someone like Christy, you're facing something of a struggle trying to get onto the housing ladder.
But so just explain, in basic terms, when we talk about, more mortgages being given out last month than there were the year before, and all of these so-called great figures, what kind of indicator is that for us all, whether you own a property or not? It's good news generally for the economy, is it?
Well, all these are barometers of the housing market. The housing market is one of the last truly capitalist markets that we have in this country. It's reasonably unregulated, and those that are buying and selling can do so freely, whether they're buying houses or renting houses, in fact. So what we see every month with indexes that come out on average asking prices, and as Matt said earlier, average asking prices are up. Vendors are expecting to get a little bit more than they were this time last year. Also, average sale prices, the deal prices for those that are fortunate enough to sell, they're also up, but not by quite as much. And then mortgage lending obviously dictates specifically what your house is worth. There's a great myth that house prices are based on supply and demand. They're not. They're based on how much or how easily you can get credit, how easy it is to borrow. And the government are doing an awful lot to try and make it easier still.
The thing is, Henry, are we being lulled into a false sense of security here by very, very low interest rates? OK, Mark Carney, the new governor of the Bank of England, says they will probably stay at 0.5% for quite a while. But they can go up again one day. And, people of the previous generation to us will remember them going up to 15%, up to 17% in a day in the early 90s. So people could get bitten again somewhere down the line.
Absolutely, and it's important to remember that boom and bust, as it's been described, house prices going up, house prices crashing, is not a good thing for the wider economy, or indeed for those who own and aspire to own property. What we want is a stable housing market. The government, for some reason, the coalition government, are intent on ramping house prices, it would appear. They've come under considerable pressure and criticism from a wide variety of people about the Help to Buy scheme particularly, but funding for lending is what is principally driving the current house prices, and that will continue to do so through until the next election in 2015.
Just very briefly, the advice remains the same for buyers of all types, not just first-time buyers. You shouldn't overstretch yourself, because that's what's got us into the problems in the first place.
These initiatives are helping people to afford to buy something they wouldn't otherwise be able to afford. So if you're thinking of buying, remember that interest rates are at record 365-year lows. They can only get higher. Make sure that when you buy something, you budget to ensure that you can afford it when those rates do rise.
Henry, many thanks indeed.